In this video, we're going to explore factoring special types of binomials known as the difference of two squares. To get at this pattern that happens for these special binomials, we're going to factor these binomials using the general method for factoring trinomials and treating 0 as the middle term. So let's get started with this first one. We have x squared minus 9, and if we treat this as x squared plus 0x minus 9, and then we look at analyzing factor pairs. We need factor pairs here that have a product of negative 9 and a sum of 0. So I'll just write factor pairs of negative 9, and I've abbreviated factor pairs with FP here. So looking at those, negative 9, so the product's going to be negative, so I need one number to be positive and one number to be negative, and I need the sum to be 0. So making these, I could go 1 and negative 9. That sum would be negative 8. I could go negative 1 and positive 9, and that sum would be positive 8. And then I could go 3 and negative 3, and that sum is going to be 0. And the only way I can get 0, if I think about this, is if I had two numbers that were the same except had the opposite sign. So looking then at how I can factor this, x squared plus 0x minus 9 will then factor into x plus 3 times x minus 3. And we can see that if we check this and we factor it out, this x plus 3, x minus 3, we've seen that as a special product. And when we expand that, we get x squared minus 3x plus 3x minus 9. And that simplifies then down to x squared minus 9. What we can note there is that those middle terms canceled, and the first term and the last term are, the first term and then what we're subtracting are both perfect squares. Okay, let's look at one more example. So we have w squared minus 49, and again, breaking this down so that we're thinking of it as a trinomial with a middle term of 0, we could write this as w squared plus 0w minus 49. And then looking at factor pairs here, so we'll make factor pairs of negative 49, and then we'll look for a sum of 0. So we could have 1 and negative 49, which would give us a sum of negative 48. We could have negative 1 and positive 49, which would give us a sum of positive 48. Or we could have 7 and negative 7, and that's going to give us our sum of 0. So when we factor this, it will be w plus 7 times w minus 7. And as we can see, what we need in order for there to not be a middle term is for this plus and minus pairing to happen. And so our general formula, we refer to this as the difference of two squares. So for the difference of two squares, and we can generalize it as a squared minus b squared, and then it will equal a plus b times a minus b. Or that could be written as a minus b times a plus b. But we have to have that pairing with opposite signs.